welcome back to FANSPLAINED, a media criticism podcast with Ryan and Em. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Em.
This is a special one-off episode / bonus to cover a film we recently had the opportunity to screen as a new release. The Batman.
The Batman.
The Batman.
Batman!
The Batman was officially in theaters as of March 4th. Well, it was yesterday as I wrote this. It's 2 days ago as we record this because it's midnight now.
Meh.
Though we went to the early screening on Thursday night.
Yes.
Our screening was a bit odd as we were 2 of maybe 4 women in the half-capacity theater. But Regal also had this really cool setup where they had, like, themed popcorn tin. Well, it wasn't a tin. It was a bucket.
A bucket with a handle.
And, like, this themed cup. And it is actually the highest quality cup I've ever gotten out of a Regal for, like, a movie release like that. It's, like, thick.
It is a very nice cup, and the straw is also reusable.
Heck yeah!
But yeah, there were not a lot of women there.
No.
It was predominantly dudes.
We had, like, 3 rows of, like, the same group of guys ahead of us where they took up at least 2.5 rows ahead of us.
Yeah.
They were all dressed exactly the same.
Yeah.
They all knew each other. They were all friends with each other.
It was the weirdest thing. They all kept coming in the black jacket suits, and I'm like, what is going on?
The mob. But they also kept, like, laughing at really inopportune, weird times. I remember getting very offended about it at one point, because I'm like, it isn't funny.
There's nothing
like,
funny
this moment
about
is
this.
tense. It's not funny.
Well, they were teenagers, you know. It is what it is.
Children's. I mean, that's what we get for not going to the 21 plus theater, which is what we normally do.
Yes.
But that was too far away, and schedules were really weird when I ended up buying tickets for this, so we ended up going to a theater we don't normally go to that often.
Luckily, we were smart enough to go there during Spider-Man, and that is what made that experience so much better.
That is why I do, like, all of my Marvel movies at the 21 plus theater, because you don't have to deal with teenagers.
Nope. Or kids.
They're fine, but I just don't need, like, screaming babies during Disney movies and whatever.
It's during the movie they don't always make the best audience, because I literally remember during Iron Man, and even during the first time I saw Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring in the theater, there's a crying baby somewhere in the background of both movies, and I'm like, why does this always happen?
That's why I went to that theater for The Hobbit 2.
Yes.
And then I never watched the third one for The Hobbit 2.
Well, the third one's very sad. I still haven't watched it. I know what happens, which is why I haven't watched it. Too sad. Too sad.
But, preface here, this episode's gonna have a shit ton of spoilers in it. Yeah. I swore very early on, I don't care. It's gonna have a ton of spoilers in it. Unlike Death of the Nile, where we kind of wanted to low-key keep the ending a surprise for people who didn't know anything about it, this one's just, it's gonna have spoilers in it, but it's released also. It wasn't a pre-release that we went to go see.
Yeah.
So, and the cameos were, like, almost as poorly kept a secret as No Way Home. Not quite, but close.
They tried so hard to be like, no, you're not seeing it right. These theories are completely false.
Yeah, the Batman actually had marketing, though, so you could kind of downplay it.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man didn't have that.
No.
But yeah, so there will be spoilers here. If you're not chill with those, come back when you've seen the movie. Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right, yes. So, spoiler warning kicking in now. Go. The Batman follows Bruce Wayne through the second year of his stint as the vigilante Batman, giving us a quick introduction to his relationship with Lieutenant Jim Gordon.
You really cracked yourself up with that one.
I did. And the Gotham City Police Department as well. Wayne is working through a mountain of personal trauma, including the previous deaths of his parents at 10 years old, which we don't have to see for, like, the 900th time.
This is probably the first Batman movie we've never had to see that.
Thank fuck. There we go. I swore again. We already, you know what? I already ruined it 3 minutes in, so I can ruin it 4 minutes in. It's fine.
I'm just glad it's not me this time, Joe.
It's my fault. It's fine. Whatever. It's the Batman. I was gonna swear.
Just have a lot of intense feelings about this movie.
Yes. And his mental health is a centerpiece of his journey through the film as it continues to strain his relationships and his reactions to the events around him, even with people he doesn't have actual relationships with yet. Mm-hmm. Gotham is on the verge of a mayoral election, which we discover is a trigger for Bruce due to his father's previous attempt at an election to the same office before his death. And suddenly the deaths of high-profile city figures begin to stack up, beginning with the incumbent mayor seeking re-election. With each death, we're given more pieces of a picture of a city quickly unraveling and built upon very dangerous lies. Mm-hmm. Tracking down the serial murderer, as well as putting together clues he's been given through the Riddler's directed to the Batman, puts Wayne on a collision course with his own family legacy and his true feelings on Gotham and the people around him. Is he truly the recluse he's turned himself into, or is there something larger to live for, to fix?
You mean recluse?
Recluse.
Recluse.
You can say it both ways. Tomato, tomato, darling. Yes, that's what I mean. Wow.
Wow. I know.
Wow. I mispronounce a lot of things, so ain't one of them. 8. So Matt Reeves takes on this new adaptation of The Batman.
Oh my god. Are you gonna do that every day?
Yes. With prior work including Let Me In, Dawn of Planet of the Apes, War for Planet of the Apes, Cloverfield, and this, he produced the subsequent sequels but didn't direct them. And the co-creation of the TV show Felicity with J.J. Abrams. And we also find that, a lot of the people who have commonly worked with Matt Reeves a lot have also worked with J.J. Abrams a lot.
I'm just so amused that he co-created Felicity.
Felicity.
And then went on to make this movie.
Batman.
But this is going to be a controversial opinion, but I actually liked his remake of Let the Right One In.
I haven't seen it yet, because I was so enamored with the foreign film that I never watched the remake.
I think it's probably because I couldn't find a version of the foreign film to watch first, so I watched the remake first, and I actually really liked it.
That's fair.
And then I watched the foreign one, and I love the foreign one, too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I either saw it at the Seattle International Film Festival, or we ended up going through, one of those weird rental places that had, import movies or whatever.
I really loved the actors in the remake. I loved how the relationship dynamic changed with the vampire and her adult helper. Mm-hmm. But I will say that the soundtrack in the original is still one of the best soundtracks ever.
Well, we'll get to the soundtrack in a minute.
Good.
So once Affleck dropped out from the new solo Batman project as director,
Thank God.
We were supposed to get a Batfleck movie. He was going to direct and star in it.
No.
So he dropped out as director, and then it would later also drop out as the star.
Thank God.
A number of directors were also considered alongside Reeves, including Denis Villeneuve, George Miller, Ridley Scott, and then a bunch of other people.
We are not a fan of Batfleck in this dojo.
No, we're really not. Sorry.
Sorry.
There wasn't enough character there for me to really give a crap about Batfleck. I'm sorry. I said it. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna say it right now that I feel like what Snyder wanted to do with Batman, Matt Reeves succeeded in doing with this.
Their names were Martha!
No, her name's clearly Maria in this one.
Their names were Martha. No, Maria was Selena's mom.
Well, that's a lot of M names.
Yes. Her name's still Martha. And I'll get to that, and it's actually important in this movie, not in the way that Batman vs. Superman pretended it was important, but actually important.
Yes.
And we'll get to that in a second. But Reeves only wanted to do the film if given complete creative control, and this was largely granted by the studio, which only gave him a few mandates, including having to stick to a PG-13 rating.
And they pushed the fuck out of that.
Well, the only reason they were able to keep their PG-13 was because there's no nudity, and there's not a lot of swearing.
There's a lot of boobage, though. A lot of cleavage.
There's a lot of cleavage, but there's not actual nudity.
No.
And there's not a lot of swearing in it. There's a lot of violence.
A fuck ton
It's
of violence.
very violent, but they skirted the R rating because it didn't have swear words and it didn't have actual nudity in it.
So, let me get this straight.
If it had had any of that, it would have been too many things stacked on top of each other and would have been an R-rated movie.
The MPAA is totally fine with someone's face nearly getting someone's face getting bludgeoned in. People being suffocated with duct tape. People being blown up. People having bombs strapped to their necks. They're fine with people almost getting choked out and strangled and viciously, brutally beaten to death.
Rats in a cage eating someone's face. Yes.
Yes, they're fine.
Except that we don't actually see that. The threat's just implied.
They're fine with all of this violence towards women, all this implied sexual trafficking and drug use. They're implied with all of that. But no swearing and no female presenting nipples.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when the bomb strapped to the neck was so jigsaw, it wasn't even funny. Like, I remember leaning over to you and doing the, pretty much it, oops, I'm a puppet now.
Yeah, and I have to keep shoving you away because you keep doing it all the time.
Yeah, but I only did it, the once during the movie, because it was very obvious. Because it really felt like that one moment. Is it like in Saw 2? Where she has, the cage head thing, or is that still in the first one?
That's the first one. She has the bear trap.
Yeah, then that's what it reminded me of, was that.
Yeah, that's the bear trap on her face.
I can't remember, because I've only seen the first two, and it's been forever.
And it literally will rip her head in two, if it were to go off.
Yes. But yes, that's how they managed to keep their PG-13.
Thanks for that, James Wan.
Yes. The script is also written by Matt Reeves, with a co-writing credit given to Peter Craig. His other work includes The Town, with Ben Affleck.
Which was a Ben Affleck directed film.
Yeah. Mockingjay Part 1 and 2.
Which didn't need to be 2 parts.
No. Bad Boys for Life. The new Top Gun movie that hasn't come out yet.
Which we don't even know if it will be
it's good or not. And other things. So, you win some, you lose some, I guess, because this movie was fantastic.
Yeah, this movie was great.
I'll accept it. Also, I can imagine having a Denis or George Miller version of this movie, and it would have looked pretty similar to me, I think.
I think so.
Because they all have... Well, it's not exactly the same visuals, but they all are very aesthetically minded directors. Yes. Because Miller really likes those bright, vibrant splashes of color as well. We saw that in Fury Road.
Well, I think that was more tailored to Fury Road, because if you look at Witches of Eastwick, his lighting is a lot darker, softer. It's not as stark as in Fury Road.
But I can see where we would have ended up with a similar movie.
Yeah, I think he would have gone very dark with it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm glad that we got the movie that we got.
Yes.
This movie's fucking perfect. It
is.
Perfect. Surprise, spoilers, we haven't even gotten to the end where we're rating it. It's perfect.
It is perfect.
Thank you, it's perfect. So, we also have, Reeves was very particular about the way that he crafted how this Batman worked, because he wanted it to be distinct from all the other 5 million Batmans that we've had before.
Yes.
So, first off is his portrayal of Bruce, which is very, quote, emo. It's very, quote, emo.
The most ironic part of it is that he's probably the most true to Batman's character.
Mm-hmm. I actually really liked it. The processing made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it did.
The origin made a lot of sense to me. We didn't have to have this, flagrant, flashy, Iron Man-esque playboy. And I'm really glad we avoided that, because it would have really just felt like, oh, so we're doing the Iron Man thing again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of glad we moved around that and really just kind of dug into, the depth of how just deeply fucked up all of this is.
Yeah, he's very traumatized. He does the bare minimum that he has to for appearances, and that's it.
Yeah, there's no, long Taylor Swift-esque list of ex-girlfriends.
No. He's not out there, living a double life, trying to, keep up appearances. No, he doesn't care. He's doing the bare minimum, and he lets it be known to those in his house that he does not care.
Yeah. So the predominant inspiration for this, I hear My Chemical Romance thrown around a lot because of the eye makeup.
Well, also because it's actually very, the aesthetic reminds me a lot of Welcome to the Black Parade.
Yeah, it does a little bit. But the actual predominant inspiration was Kurt Cobain after Reeves listened to Something in the Way, which is used in the film several times. Thank God. I loved it. I thought that, that was just going to be, a trivia tidbit that I was going to get to tell you later, and I didn't know they were actually going to put the song in the movie. But then they kept putting the song in the movie, and I'm like, this is perfect. This is all I ever wanted. This is amazing. And, a lot of that inspiration also came from Gus Van Sant's Last Days, which is, a fictional version of Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, that is
because he's, living alone in this, decaying mansion, and that's basically where he got, the idea for how the Wayne mansion looks.
The thing about that movie, Last Days, that always fucked me up the most, is that there's this part in the movie where Kurt keeps seeing this person in a red hood wandering around the garden in the back. And it's
what the hell, Gus Van Sant?
It's kind of implied that maybe he was murdered by this person. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing that always fucked me up about that movie.
What?
It's a very creepy movie, actually.
I'm gonna need to see it now. I actually kind of want to.
It's very creepy.
So we all know about the Zodiac inspiration for the Riddler that's been covered to death.
And after having watched, both of us, we watched the director's cut of Zodiac.
Yes.
And this is the Riddler speaking, and it was like, oh!
I loved it so much, though.
It was so good, because that's a deliberate callback to when the Zodiac was like, this is the Zodiac speaking.
Yeah.
And it was
and
for anyone who's not in the true crime circle here, we love watching that shit. So
heck yes.
We saw all of that.
Speaking of true crime things that are more fictionalized, though, a lot of the inspiration for that, on top of that, came from Reeves reading Manhunter, which was also turned into a movie, which was the precursor to Silence of the Lambs, which I didn't know until we watched all of them.
I had to educate
because I knew about Silence of the Lambs. I didn't know about Manhunter, though.
Yeah, I had to educate her on the lore and the canon of Silence of the Lambs.
Because I wasn't expecting Brian Cox to come at me like that. I was not expecting it. I appreciated it, but I was not expecting it.
And again, FYI, Manhunter by Michael Mann is the superior version. Red Dragon is not.
Yes.
If you're going to watch any version, watch Manhunter.
Yes.
It's so 80s, it's ridiculous.
But also, I can see a lot of that in Bruce.
Oh, yeah.
Also.
Oh, yeah. Especially with a lot of the POV camera angles in there.
But apparently, one of the actual scenes that was the most inspired by that ended up cut.
No.
So there was actually a scene in the movie. Spoilers, again, just spoilers all over the place. So there is a point when Batman goes to Arkham, and he's trying to do a profile on the Riddler after they've, thrown him in jail. So he goes to the Joker to do it.
Oh.
So it's basically they have this very,
the
Hannibal Will thing.
Hannibal Will Grimm. Oh my god.
Because Joker's already locked up because we're past year 1.
Thank God.
So Joker's not really
a huge
presence, which I appreciate.
I really feel like after Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix doing it, that there really is, you're done. You don't need to do the Joker anymore. The perfect Jokers have already been done.
Yeah, well, that, and, I don't mind him as just, a very secondary presence to something versus, telling me it's going to be a secondary presence to something and then giving me the first Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
That's not a secondary presence to anything, and I hate it.
Yeah, we don't need... I said this before, that Batman has such an extensive rogue gallery that you really can do so much with every other villain there. I know the Joker is the most popular. I get it. But seriously, can we please explore his the rest of his rogue gallery? It's so extensive. There's so many people there that you could do such amazing adaptations for if you really just, flex some creative muscles with it.
Mm-hmm. Like, anything other than the Joker and Harley Quinn for a little while would be really fucking nice.
Like actual Killer Croc. Not Suicide Squad Killer Croc, but the one who lives in the sewers, the one that has little children reporting to him and shit. Or Clayface. Clayface terrified me in the animated series.
Well, the plans for this movie was to make it a new trilogy that isn't connected to the DCEU. It's in its own little, like, pocket multiverse universe.
Which, honestly, I think that's the best thing they can do right now, is that say, sure, the Snyderverse still exists, but we're moving and doing these other universes.
So the Snyderverse people don't have to necessarily feel like everyone's just...
But also that means...
poo-pooing on their stuff, but at the same time, they're going to turn into the Star Wars Legends fans, where they're going to act like it was taken away from them and it wasn't.
But also this means that the Tim Burton verse still exists.
Yeah.
Nolan verse Batman still exists. And whatever universe,
Joel Schumacher. The Schumacher verse.
No, I was going to say Todd Scott's Joker exists and whatever.
I mean, that's fair, too. But the Schumacher verse also exists. You're welcome. But, like, there are also, like, little nods that, like, I still really, I can kind of see it. So, Reeves and Pattinson have both kind of talked about how they want to explore Robin, the owl thing. I forgot what it was. I literally talked to you about this and then I forgot what in the hell it was. Hold on. I don't read Batman, I'm sorry.
Nightwing?
No. Court of Owls, thank you. Calendar Man, which you got really excited about.
Yeah, because Calendar Man's fucked up. He's a guy who can literally, like, grow through a whole lifespan in, like, a few days and then dies and then comes back.
That's terrifying.
Yes.
And then Mr. Freeze, which I kept, like, seeing, like, references to that, too. Like, the minute they mentioned 44 Below as the name of, like, the secret club or whatever, I know it's not the exact number used in the Mr. Freeze song that was in the Joel Schumacher movie, but that is immediately what my brain went to, is that, like, Heat Miser, Snow Miser song.
Yes.
Literally what my brain went to the minute I heard that. I'm like, is Mr. Freeze coming?
I mean, the club is the Iceberg Club.
Yeah, I knew that, but it was the specific terminology that really got me.
Also, you're gonna have the penguin.
The penguin's also in a frozen iceberg club.
Yeah.
And the penguin's getting a spin-off series in theory. They also are trying to do a spin-off series surrounding the GCPD, but they want to do it during Batman's year one.
Oh.
So we don't know if, like, Pattinson's actually going to come back or whatever, because they want to do it through, like, in theory right now, because these are all still concepts and they're not, like, produced yet.
Yeah.
They wanted to focus it on, like, one of, like, the corrupt cops.
Oh.
And, like, his perspective of that year one.
Of which there are many.
Absolutely many. Most of them, actually. Most of them. Thank you for this thesis, this very timely thesis, Matt Reeves.
I mean,
ow! Everything hurts because everything's too salient.
I mean, it's literally been a theme in Batman for several years now.
This one was not quite as bad as watching No Time to Die, and I'm like, that timing sure was a thing.
Except when we got to the third act, there was a particular scene. That
particular scene was very January 6th.
And it really was upsetting because of how But
we gotta beat the crap out of everybody, so it's fine.
Yes.
It's fine.
It's fine.
In Minecraft.
Yes. In Minecraft, Batman won.
Yes.
As he always does.
Yes. Where did I put it?
By beating the shit out of everybody.
Yes. So there were also a lot of comic inspos for the movie. So it's not just like, oh, well, we referenced year one and that's all we touched, or we referenced The Long Halloween and that's all we touched. They used year one, The Long Halloween, Ego, Hush, Dark Victory, 0 Year, and, like, they mentioned offhand, like, a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah,
but those were, like, all the predominant ones that they used.
They really did just cram in so many different storylines that I was surprised at how much they managed to throw in there.
I mean, it is a 3-hour movie.
Including a bit of, House of Arkham.
Yeah, but this is what happens when you give us one predominant villain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were other ones, but they weren't as important, right? Like, they were secondary plot lines, and they felt like secondary plot lines, and it worked.
Yeah. Because if you can get... Here's the thing writers need to understand. If you can get one villain right, that means you'll have the chance later to get other villains right.
Bingo. Because you don't need to fit all of their stories into the same movie.
No, you don't.
Not everything is Spider-Man No Way Home.
Which actually managed to do it pretty well this time around.
Fair, for, like, once. There were also a lot of film inspirations that Reeves mentioned. A lot of them were, like, mostly 70s noir-esque stuff.
I could definitely see that.
So there was The French Connection, a movie called Clute, which they mentioned specifically for, like, the building of Bruce and Selina's relationship.
Yeah, Clute is basically Donald Sutherland, Jane Fonda together, where he plays a cop investigating a serial killer going around killing prostitutes, and Jane Fonda plays a prostitute that he thinks is being targeted next.
Okay, yep, I can see that. Yep.
And she owns cats. So...
he also mentioned Chinatown, All the President's Men, for a specific reason that I will get to in like 2 seconds.
That's very apt. I could definitely see that now.
Taxi Driver, and various Hitchcock films. Especially for like the mystery detective stuff. I'm pretty sure that somewhere in the article that I read, they mentioned like the Zodiac movie as well.
Yes.
Specifically because it was, it was based on, like, the Fincher stuff.
That and a lot of the style is very reminiscent of Fincher, but I would argue that I think this movie actually looks better than David Fincher's movies.
Yes. It did. It was stunning. Please give Fraser all of the Oscars ever. Thank you.
All the awards.
All of them. If you don't give him one for Dune, I will be so mad. So mad.
Furious.
As mad as I am about Denis' snub for Best Director.
A very big snub.
Extremely. That's not what we're here to talk about. So, in concepting some of, like, the corrupt officials for Gotham, they also thought that it would be more realistic to audiences if they used, like, homages to figures that already existed. So, both the mayor, whose name is Don Mitchell Jr., and the district attorney, whose name is Gil Coulson, both share surnames with actual figures from Watergate.
Yes.
Which is where we get back to All the President's Men. So, the mayor shares a surname with John M. Mitchell, who was the attorney general under Nixon and the campaign president for both elections. He was the guy who was in charge of, like, the law and order position for the Nixon administration. I will get to in a minute, because he's an asshole. I mean, they're both awful, but...
I mean, a lot of people that worked in the Nixon administration.
These ones, in particular, are some special people.
They stand out.
And Charles Coulson, who was special counsel to Nixon, he was Nixon's, quote, hatchet man, and he was the first of the Watergate 7 to be incarcerated. I mean, kind of like the DA being the first one to rat everybody out, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Well, sort of rat everybody out. But, no. Come back, Notes, I need you. Thank you. Oh, no. Sorry, Google Docs is just taking me everywhere. It's taking me on a journey right now. So, the real Mitchell was the guy who enlisted the former FBI agent Steve King to prevent his wife Martha Mitchell from learning about the Watergate break-in or contacting anybody about it. She is the reason that everybody even knew about Watergate, is because she was contacting reporters.
Good.
But he is a terrible husband.
Yes.
So...
Probably why she was like, fuck it, I'm gonna tell all these reporters.
Right? So while she was on the phone call with a journalist about the break-in, the FBI guy, like, pulls the phone cord out of the wall mid-conversation.
Oh my god.
And then she was also held against her will in a California hotel room and forcibly sedated by a psychiatrist after a physical struggle with 5 men that left her needing stitches.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. I'm quoting this from Wikipedia. Nixon aides, in an effort to discredit her, told the press that she had a, quote, drinking problem. Nixon was later to tell an interviewer in 1977 that Martha was a distraction to Mitchell, such that no one was minding the store, and if, quote, it hadn't been for Martha Mitchell, there'd have been no Watergate.
Well, good for her. I'm
Actually,
glad there was.
No, there would have been no Watergate if you hadn't done it in the first place, Richard. What a thought. Stunning.
And see, this is why social media now plays such an important role in shit getting out, because you can't control it like this anymore.
But I find this funny because this is the mayor. This is the guy that the mayor is based on.
Oh, God.
Whose wife is just kind of conveniently not there when he dies.
No, she's out trick-or-treating with their son.
Yeah, the cute kid who trusts Batman.
Yes.
Bless that child.
Yes.
Adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, I love him. That kid has no character other than trusting Batman, and I appreciate it.
It was a very, like... There were a lot of scenes
He's just there to sadly look at Bruce, and for Bruce to look sadly back at him, and I love it.
There were a lot of scenes that got me a bit upset, but the scene at the end where he takes Bruce's hand, that actually made me tear up, because I'm like, finally we have a scene in a Batman movie where they remember what Batman really is about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the other guy, Charles Coulson, worked with other people to recruit a guy named Howard Hunt as a $100 a day, which, if you equate that to 2019 dollars, apparently, is about $753.
Oh, Jesus.
In 2022 dollars, we're probably looking at like 800. I mean, look at the inflation, right? $800 a day.
Give me $800
ish,
a day.
As a White House consultant. And Hunt never technically worked for Coulson, but he did a lot of stuff for Coulson's office, so they could kind of pretend that he didn't work for them, but would do stuff offhand for the office so that they could just kind of skirt around it a little bit. And this was prior to working for the head of the White House Special Operations Unit, which had been organized to stop leaks in the Nixon administration. Yeah, you didn't do very well with that, did you? So Hunt teamed with some other people and attempted to steal documents from the Pentagon paper leaker Daniel Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office. So not only are you trying to steal this dude's files, but you're trying to steal them from a medical office. Awful. This is why HIPAA needed to exist.
Something, and yet some people are still doing it even today.
Awful. So the Pentagon Papers were a collection of military documents comprising an exhaustive study of the United States' involvement in the Vietnam War. Their publication helped increase opposition to the war, according to Wikipedia. So Coulson was basically like the guy that was like secretly in charge with trying to discredit this whistleblower.
Great.
So that's what he was doing, is he was trying to discredit this whistleblower by stealing his secret documents from his psychiatrist to, like, discredit him.
I like how the Republican Party has pretty much kind of just kept this as its baseline.
Awful.
For so many years.
Awful.
And now they're just getting worse.
Yeah, so they hoped that these revelations about this guy, like, basically outing that he had a psychiatrist or whatever, would discredit, like, the anti-war organization protests in general, which, no.
They're all just a bunch of hippies anyway.
Right. This obviously didn't happen. But Coulson then admitted to leaking information from Ellsberg's confidential FBI file to the press, but denied organizing Hunt's burglary of the psychiatrist's office. Bullshit. So this guy was, again, the first to go to prison.
Yeah.
Right? So kind of like the DA, first to actually just, okay, fine, whatever, great, I'm done. So he's first to go to prison. So while he's in prison, he turns into, I found God.
Yeah.
And gets, like, super evangelical, gets super into prison reform because he's so into Jesus now. And because of all this crap, he wasn't awarded the Presidential Citizens Medal by George W. Bush in 2008.
Of course
Really?
he was.
Really? This dude helped instigate Watergate.
Also, of all the...
And you give him a fucking presidential medal?
Also, of all the branches of Christianity you're gonna pick evangelical.
Oh, it was wildly evangelical, yeah. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Well, this whole thing is gross, anyway.
Yes, but, yeah, so that's...
Gross and disappointing, the movie.
Again, how this became very... too realistic in, like, every sense of the word.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, so, and then we've already talked about how it was developed separate from the DCEU, so this movie technically sits in this designation called Earth 2.
Earth 2.
Which it sounds like a very comicsy thing. I think that is a comicsy thing.
It is, because they got Earth 616 and Earth
Oh, that's
52.
Marvel. 616 is Marvel.
Whatever. They're all doing the same thing.
But yeah, that's Earth 2 is...
They're doing it. They're both doing it.
Well, I mean, everybody's doing their multiverse stuff at exactly the same time, including that indie movie that we saw an ad for.
Yeah. Which...
looks rad.
I told you it looked rad.
It does.
Michelle Yeoh in a multiverse movie where she gets to kick butt in various universes? Yes. Thank you, A24.
Yes. Yes, it looks great. But again, not what we're here for. But yes, everyone is doing their multiverse stuff at the same time, basically, and The Flash has been planning to do it for a while. Then we have this indie movie doing it, and because of all the delays, The Flash ended up happening over the top of Multiverse of Madness. So, like, everybody's just kind of doing it all at once.
Yeah, because now this means that they can just go off and make movies about anything instead of having to, keep a continuity.
Does this mean Green Lantern universe still exists somewhere?
Yes, unfortunately.
So, getting into, like, the filmmaking of it...
Actually...
Sorry. Yes, actually what?
Sorry to interrupt, but...
No, you're fine.
Actually, you bring up the Green Lantern. The guy who played the DA was the bad guy in the Green Lantern. That's the same actor.
Skarsgard was?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I had no idea.
Yeah, that was him.
That's so funny.
Jeffrey Rush was in it, and Mark Strong was too.
Mark Strong can do so much better.
He was the pink bad guy Green Lantern that they were trying to set up the sequel for at the end.
This sounds like a I mean, I know that it's regarded as a truly awful movie, but it sounds like a truly awful movie. Anyway, so getting into the filmmaking of the Batman, it's designed to be the first in a new trilogy, and is filmed by Greg Fraser, who previously worked with Reeves on Let Me In, and his previous work also includes Rogue One.
Yes.
About 3 episodes of the season 1 of The Mandalorian. He also developed a specific technique that they used with The Mandalorian and then used in other places as well. Where they can, like, they set up the lights in a certain way so that they can render the visual effects green screen backgrounds in real time.
Ooh.
So they can just kind of see what's happening while they're filming it. Cool. The actors can't, obviously, but, like, camera people can.
That's cool.
He's also worked on Bright Star, Snow White and the Huntsman, which the best part of that is the look of it.
Yes.
And then he's also done Lion, for which he had an Oscar and BAFTA nomination, and then most recently Dune, which also has an Oscar and a BAFTA nomination. And he better win both of them, I swear to God. He deserves it, and I will be so sincerely mad
And
if
FYI,
he does not get this.
And FYI, Bright stars a Jane Campion film.
Yeah, so he's just attached to all these, like, random Oscar nominees.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
Because they all see how good he is at his job.
Yeah, like, a lot of these, like, groups of people are kind of incestuous, I was noticing, because they all kind of run with the same people, so, like,
they just know who they like
Frasier works
with.
a lot with, like, Reeves, and he works a lot with, Gareth Edwards. And then you had, like, other people that worked a lot with Gareth Edwards and J.J. Abrams.
They just know who they like working with.
Yeah, it's really funny.
That's all.
It's just funny. The 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon of it all is very funny. So, I already talked about the technique on the visual backgrounds and the Manhunter inspiration scene. So the Batmobile was actually inspired by Stephen King's Christine.
Oh
because Reeves, quote, I like the idea of the car itself as a horror figure. And it does that because, like, the minute it turns on, it's, like, screaming. And I'm like, is that a person in the background or something? No, it was the car.
It's like those barn owls when they scream.
Yes, it was a lot like that, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was reminded of, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Bat sonar. Yeah, kind of. Bat sonar. So, like, that was terrifying, and I loved it. I love that car.
Yes.
And then you have, like, all these aesthetic notes, so they wanted it to be very, like, neo-noir-esque, which it is.
It very much was.
But I also saw this, like, amazing quote on Twitter, and I do not remember who said it. I'm very sorry. But they were, like, talking about how this movie was, like, the one to show you finally that superhero movies didn't have to look like that.
Yeah.
Because they can look like this.
Yeah,
and it's true because it's so pretty and I want to die.
It's gorgeously dark is what it is.
And I know that there are going to be a lot of people being like, it's so dark, I can't see anything, the lighting's really bad. The lighting is not bad and I will fight you.
The lighting,
in Minecraft.
The lighting and atmosphere in this is pretty much flawless.
It's amazing. That scene with, like, the flare in the flood, I died.
The shot from above where all the people are coming towards him, and it's so good.
It's so good. The strobe lights in the club also were, like, stunning during that, like, fight scene when he's, like, fighting his way into the club. But also, like, strobe lights normally screw me up because I have sensory perception disorder. Thank you, ADHD.
I think it helped
and strobe lights are really, really bad for me, but
I think it helped that they were, like, timed to the music, pretty much.
Yeah, but it was also... Yes, yeah. Actual strobe lights, though, like... Oof.
Yeah, actual strobe lights are very
But even
intense.
sometimes in movies, like, I'll get, like, not quite, like, that epileptic stuff, but my brain really doesn't like flashing lights in excess. I can handle things like GIFs and flashy lights as long as it's not just a constant bombardment, but the movie really wasn't, but, like, the club looked... stunning.
Yes.
The, like, color gradients and the sunsets. I want to die. It was so good.
Yeah, it was
so good. And, like, the way that they'd also film, like, Bruce doing his, like, stakeout stuff, where, like, you could tell that it was, like, goggles and stuff. I'm like, that is very Dune-esque, because they have those shots in Dune also when, like, they're using the binoculars and stuff. And they'll film it like it's actual binoculars, like, moving around, so you can actually, like, see it through that forced perspective, and it's really cool.
Other movies have done that, too.
Oh, I know, but this looked very specific. I could tell that it was the same guy doing it. And they also, like, would linger on the fights a lot, which is not a thing that a lot of action movies in general don't do anymore.
Or do the wide shots.
But, like, the superhero ones also don't do that. We were even complaining about this with with the Avengers, where, like, the cutting and the fight scenes was really weird.
Yeah. A lot of comic book movies with all that kind of action. They do not just sit on the scene.
No, they will do flash cut, flash cut,
they
cut,
cut
flash
away.
cut.
But
they'll do that because it's
theoretically very rare that you have just a wide shot showing the action,
just the fight.
The action right there.
Yeah, it's like normally they do the flash cuts because it's in theory more kinetic and it moves it a lot faster, but at the same time, and we complained about this with Quantum of Solace,
yes,
is that you're making the camera work do all of the work for you, not the choreography, not the intensity of the movie, not anything.
Which is one of the reasons why Daredevil is so good, because
we'll get to that, won't we?
It does that.
Well, we'll get to that. But this one, like, it really just sticks on the fight scenes. Or on the car chase scenes. Like, even, like, that also could have been
really good.
The car chase scenes also have a lot of that kinetic, like, flash cutting. This one didn't really a lot either, because you kept seeing, like, all these cars swerving into them and stuff.
The car chase scene with him and the Penguin is very reminiscent of the French Connection.
Yes. Yeah. And the end of it is exactly like the trailer, and it's perfectly timed.
So good.
The music in it is...
The theme is very reminiscent of the theme from the animated series.
Yeah, we'll get to the music toward the end.
I'm just saying it's because of that it was hitting all those, just right vibes for me.
Oh, yeah.
Because I loved Hans Zimmer's score for the Nolan movies. I still do. But this, I love the fact that
it felt like Batman.
I love that they went back to that kind of sound, because it was very much like the animated series, but also Danny Elfman's score.
You were getting into the music section when we're not here yet.
I don't care.
We're not here yet.
We're going to
put a pin in it. We're going to come back to this.
I know we're coming back to it. I just want to say it while I have the thought.
Pin in it.
That's how my ADHD works.
Pin in it. We'll come back to it. So, we also have costuming done by Jacqueline Duran, whose other work also includes frequent stuff with Joe Wright. I don't remember who it was we were talking about recently that did all these collabs with Joe Wright. I feel like it was in the Joss Whedon episode, but I don't remember. It was somebody who, like, constantly kept doing stuff for Joe Wright. But it
was the cinematographer for the Avengers.
Was it? Okay. I knew it was somebody recently that we talked about.
Yeah, because he did Atonement.
That's right. Because we were like, is it the cinematographer or is it the director?
He did Atonement and Anna Karenina.
Got it. So, she also does a lot of those Joe Wright movies. So she did Pride and Prejudice, Atonement, Cyrano, The Soloist.
No, cinematographer.
Yeah, but she's the costumer. So the costumer here also does a lot of those Joe Wright movies. But she's also done Spencer. She did the 2015 Macbeth.
Ooh, I still really need to see that.
She did The Beauty and the Beast you don't like.
Ow.
I like a lot of the costumes in that movie, though, to be fair.
They leave a lot to be desired for me.
1917 and Little Women. Like the recent Little Women. The Timmy Little Women.
Saoirse Ronan Little Women, you mean?
Timmy Little Women. That's what I mean.
The Greta Gerwig Little Women.
Florence Pugh Pugh Little Women.
Oh my god.
But yes, effectively, yes, same movie. But the Batsuit was also done by different people, so she didn't do the Batsuit, she did, like, everything else. The Batsuit was created by a supervisor named Dave Crossman and a concept artist named Glenn Dillon, who also did concept art for The Force Awakens and Rogue One.
Well, that's why it ended up working.
But yeah, there are also a lot of other people who work with Gareth Edwards. There's a lot of Rogue One in this movie, and it's weird.
Especially when so many people wanted to dunk on that movie.
Yeah, it's very odd. And then you had somebody else named Mike Marino doing all, like, the character prosthetics, mainly for the Penguin and the Joker, who we don't see, but, again, we were supposed to have a much longer scene there, so we probably would have seen more of it.
We kind of see some of it, but not
Yeah, but it's mostly in silhouette, so you don't see a ton. You just kind of know that there's a prosthetic there.
And you basically don't ever see Colin Farrell's face because it's so...
He doesn't look like himself.
He doesn't look a thing like himself. Like, he's completely disappeared into this character.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a second, but...
Like, visually, he's completely disappeared in there.
Yes. So, the Joker had a full face design, though it's not shown. Reeves wanted it to be very similar to Conrad Veidt. Is that how you say that? Beat.
Vet?
It'd be like how you say the dude from Watchmen's last name.
Adrian Vet.
Okay, that. I can't pronounce names. We've discovered this. We've been here before. As Gwynplaine from The Man Who Laughs, which is like a German experimental film from 1928.
It's a German silent film.
Yeah, it's surrealist. That was the word I wanted. Yeah. It's a surrealist film.
Yeah, because that's what the Germans were known for with their Nosferatu.
Who was the original inspiration for the Joker in general.
Look that shit up and you'll see why.
Yeah, it's
horrifying.
It is terrifying. It is basically what they did with Jack Nicholson turned up to 11.
Yeah, he's horrifying.
Yeah. They did that, but I also really liked that Reeves wanted to he wanted it to be a biological condition rather than doing it through scarring like a lot of other stuff recently has done.
Yeah, because I think the whole plot of that movie was the fact that he literally couldn't stop from smiling or laughing, and that's why it was like slowly fucking up his face.
It's kind of like those people that, like, that condition in France or wherever it was where people just, like, couldn't stop dancing.
Yeah.
The dancing curse. So there was that. And then, unfortunately, because of all, like, there were, like, a bajillion COVID delays with this movie. It delayed production. It delayed certain actors who contracted it. Robert delayed a bunch of other stuff, but unfortunately one of the production's like primary dialogue coach died of COVID-19 in like April 2020. Aww. And so when you're like watching the movie and it has the in memoriam there at the end, that's to Andrew Jack, who died in the production of this film in like the middle of all of these crazy delays and stuff.
No, they did a very good job with everyone's dialect, honestly.
He didn't do Farrell's, though, and I'll get to that.
Oh.
And then the visual effects supervisor, Dan Lemon, also worked with Reeves on, like, his Planet of the Apes stuff. Which, again, makes sense.
Also makes sense why Andy Serkis shows up.
Yeah, all of these things keep kind of... Yeah. overlying each other. And then you have, like, how the story itself kind of works and how different it is from other Batman stuff. You have, like, it's a lot more philosophic, but at the same time, it doesn't meander with it like some movies have done previously. It focuses a lot on Bruce's character development, and we get it, and we see it, and it's beautiful. We get a lot of focus on mental health in a way that doesn't, like, trivialize the heck out of it, which you could do when, you know, it brings up all the Arkham crap.
Yeah.
It could have been, you know, a lot hokier and a lot worse.
Yeah. But I actually really like how they handled it. Because it's like... Yeah, with the reveal, they could have just gone in on how, oh, we'll see, he's crazy. He's damaged. When
Tattoo it on his forehead.
Yeah, but it's like, no, it just shows that, yes, he's experiencing trauma, but he still takes genuine steps to, you know, try to break away from that cycle of...
At least by the end of the movie, yes, for sure.
Which
and, like,
is
you see that development with Selena as well. Like, I really appreciate how this movie worked.
I really appreciate how they, did her, too, because they told a different story with her, while still keeping her very in character. Yes. Especially because Zoe Kravitz looks so much like early Selena from the comics. Like, it's ridiculous. I was just like, girl. Especially when she brought that whip out. I was like,
girl. Ooh. So, speaking of getting into acting, The Batman stars Robert Pattinson as the titular character Bruce Wayne under his alias, The Batman. Zoe Kravitz is Selena Kyle / Catwoman. Paul Dano as Edward Nashton / the Riddler, and again, I told you about this, but, like, I was so used to the name being the one they used for Jim Carrey that I was super thrown off when his last name was Nashton.
Yeah.
Which I know was what his last name should have been. I was just so used to Batman Forever that I just didn't actually know what his name was.
I mean, I think a lot of people felt that way when they heard the Riddler was going to be involved, and then they saw the teaser for it and they were like, oh it's going to be that kind of movie.
Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot / the Penguin, my friend John Turturro
oh my god
as Carmine Falcone, my friend Turturro, my dad Totino's,
my niece Garbanzo.
my niece Garbanzo.
Can't believe
my friend Turturro as Carmine Falcone,
who is genuinely menacing, actually.
I loved it. I just really wanted to say my friend Turturro.
Like, the last time he actually played a gangster, I think, was in Miller's Crossing, a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then you have Jeffrey Wright as Lieutenant James Gordon. He is not a commissioner yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Andy Serkis is Alfred Pennyworth, and I did not know where they were going to go with that. And I sat and I cried, and it was upsetting.
It was very upsetting, but in a good way.
I loved him. Yes, I loved him.
He was a very good Alfred.
Yes. And then we have Peter Skarsgård as the District Attorney Gil Coulson, who we just dragged for like 20 minutes a little bit ago.
Red for filth.
Yes. Supporting cast includes Rupert William Penry Jones as the incumbent Mayor Mitchell, who we also dragged for filth.
Yes.
Alex Fern as the Commissioner Pete Savage. He didn't actually get read for filth, but he could have been. Jamie Lawson as mayoral candidate Bella Real, as well as Luke Roberts and Stella Stalker as Thomas and Martha Wayne, among others. And that is why Martha Wayne is important, is because she shares a name with that wife that they threw into a psychiatric shit against her will, being related to this politician dude. Yeah, see? The Martha thing actually is important for once. Except for once, it's not her being forcefully done in there to keep a secret, but because she was genuinely mentally ill. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that's where they were kind of getting a little bit of that inspo, so it's like there's actually a reason for the Martha thing to be a thing.
Yeah, the Waynes and the Arkhams basically built Gotham.
I had no idea that's who she was. I don't know that much about Batman. I am a fake fan to, like, the highest degree. I've only ever seen, like, movies.
You're more of a movie Batman fan.
I don't really read I grew up on, like, X-Men comics, okay?
Here's the thing. I was always more of a Marvel fan, but when it came to DC, Batman was pretty much always a staple in my life, because one of my earliest memories are of watching the animated series.
Which I also didn't watch as a kid.
Every day I'd watch that shit. Okay, so not only have I watched the movies, I have read the comics. I haven't read all the comics, but I've read a lot of the, significant arcs. I've watched the animated series, and I've even watched some of the anime.
Yeah.
I wasn't all that pleased with the anime, but I still actually have to watch some of the other shit they've made lately.
Yes. But, yeah, so some of these, like, shocking twists that are not shocking to other people, I was like,
yeah, that's
what?
That's what House of Arkham is.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know. Now I know. Surprise! And we also have the cameo, which we talked about, A Poorly Kept Secret, with Barry Keoghan as the unseen Arkham prisoner who is the Joker. He's just the Joker.
He was Druig in the Eternals.
Yes. And that's the only thing I know him as.
The one a lot of people seem to either hate or love.
And a lot of people really want him for Dune Part 2.
No. Either Bill Skarsgard or
Dane DeHaan.
Dane DeHaan.
I know he's probably too old. I don't care. I don't care if they're both too old. I really just want the peak meta of a Skarsgård kid playing Fade. That's all I want.
It either needs to be Bill Skarsgård or Dane DeHaan. We don't want that other fucker here. Sorry, no offense to you personally. You're not a bad actor. We just have our preferences.
Yeah, except I don't really know him from anything other than the Eternals.
He was in Dunkirk, and he played
which I haven't seen yet.
He played a very significant role in The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which also had Colin Farrell in it.
Oh, well, go figure. So there were a few other actors considered for Bruce Wayne. Robert Pattinson was actually, like, written into the role, basically. So, like, Reeves wrote the role wanting Robert Pattinson there. But because Robert Pattinson had kind of, like, after Twilight, he was like, no, I don't want to do franchise crap anymore. Because he didn't like, the fame and, like, the weird stress and, like, just... Twilight fans were crazy.
Yes.
And I don't use that term lightly. I was there. I'm still largely there. And I'm sorry, Robert. I'm sorry. But yeah, basically after Twilight, he didn't really want to do, like, big franchise stuff because people get really weird about it.
Yes.
So Reeves didn't know if Pattinson was even going to want to do it. He just kind of wrote it hoping that he could kind of
shove it his way.
And then you also had Armie Hammer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Nicholas Hoult, who was the other top contender against Pattinson. And I can't imagine it. No. I really can't.
No, man.
Like, he was okay as Hank. Fine. He was fine.
I feel like...
But I don't really see him as a Bruce Wayne, like, at all.
Honestly, after watching this movie, I cannot imagine any of those other people being this
No,
role.
I can't either, because I can't imagine dark gravitas from any of them.
Robert Pattinson was so perfect in this role, I cannot imagine any of them.
I'm gonna say it, and it's going to be an unpopular opinion to a lot of people. Edward Cullen, prepped him for this role. He's watching people.
He's gonna hate that.
In their houses. He's a creep. He's a stalker.
He is.
He is.
He is.
He's a similar amount of brooding.
He is. He does it.
Edward Cullen prepared him for this role, and I'm sorry, Robert, but it did, and I appreciate it because no one else could have done this but you.
I mean, fuck, the inside of his house is literally like a Dracula set.
Unlike the Cullen house, which doesn't look like vampires live there at all.
No, this one looks
This one looked more Burton than the Burton movies did.
Yeah, this one looked straight up Edgar Allan Poe, House of Usher Gothic.
Oh yeah, it was very out of place and I loved it. I'm like, this weird house exists in, like, that sort of Chicago.
It should have been a Vincent Price film.
Oh my god, that should have been House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, that.
Can we use that set for, like, the next remake of House on Haunted Hill?
He literally lives in almost practically the middle of the city, not the outskirts of the city.
The middle of the city in, like, this weird gothic mansion.
This fucking tower mansion at the center of the city. I loved it, actually, because I was always so used to his mansion being, like, on the outskirts of Gotham, fuck off on a cliff near the ocean. No, he's right there. In his gothic tower mansion.
I do have to say, though, I did appreciate that they kind of brought, the Amazing Spider-Man thing back, where, his headquarters as Batman is not really in a Batcave. It's actually in, like, an old subway station that's named for his dad.
Yes.
Where, like, TASM kind of did that because his dad's laboratory was, like, hidden on that subway that nobody knew about.
Yeah, it was like a subway cart.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of that. I'm like, oh, yeah, I did that.
Just, significantly more bats.
Yes, because there were actual bats in the subway, so you get the bats in the Batcave, but it's not technically a cave, it's an old subway station, and I liked that.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. But the lack of, basically, our Pat's not wanting to do franchise movies worked in his favor because that meant he didn't do anything for Marvel, and that was considered an insane plus for WB because they don't want to have to deal with that scheduling conflict, especially if it's a primary actor, not like a side actor where you can kind of... The demands aren't as high on people.
Yeah.
So that was a plus, and like it kind of worked out for Holt a little bit because he wasn't technically in the MCU, he was in the X-Men cinematic universe, and he was mostly in makeup the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly, unless you get into like the way later films where both he and Jennifer Lawrence are really not in makeup that often. Whatever.
They managed to learn to control their powers, so
sure.
they look like everybody else.
Sure, boring. But they kind of worked in both their favor, but Pattinson for sure really did. But he was such a big fan of Batman that he was kind of like, yeah, I want to do it anyway. Like, he got really obsessed about it.
Good.
So when they're doing, like, the screen test between him and Holt, Pattinson had to wear Val Kilmer's batsuit. Because it was the only one that they'd had pre-made that would fit him at all. And it was still too small, so it was, like, hard for him to move around in, but it was the only one that would remotely fit.
Did it have the bat nipples?
No, they didn't do that until, like, George Clooney. That was the George Clooney movie, because everyone, like, joked on it real hard.
I mean, as they should.
Because they should. It was really funny. I don't feel like it did. It had, like, the same dumb shots of it, though, because it was also the Shoemaker movie.
I really loved the close-up on the asses in those movies.
It did have that. But I don't think that one had, like, the anatomically correct body parts on it. No. I don't think. I could actually be wrong on that.
Such a weird addition to have to a
right?
vigilante superhero set.
But I vaguely remember that was, like, the big over the Clooney movie was that they added nipples to the batsuits.
Because it made no sense.
It didn't.
Like,
at
why
all.
does he have nipples?
But yeah, it was the only one that would fit, so he had to wear Kilmer's costume. But it worked anyway, because they were just like, you know what? We like you so much. We're going with it anyway. So, Robert Pattinson had to deal with a lot of criticism. Even I, like, the first time he was cast as I'm like, really?
Yeah.
But then also I didn't hate it at the same time, but there were a lot of people who really, really, really did.
I remember being like, what the fuck? Like, why? When?
But he ended up talking to Christian Bale, who was just like, you know what? Screw it. Do what you want with it. Make it your own. Don't listen to this crap. But he also likened the criticism of Pattinson's casting to the criticism of Heath Ledger as the Joker in The Dark Knight, because a lot of people didn't trust that casting either.
No, they didn't. And he ended up
because he was too pretty.
Yeah, and he ended up becoming
the definitive Joker for, like, a decade.
Yeah.
Because he still was up until Joaquin Phoenix. I'm sorry.
Came in here and...
We're not ever going to talk about Jared Leto. He's terrible.
No, fuck that.
I'm sorry.
He came just strutting down those steps, being like, hey, Heath, mind if I join you here in film history?
What's up? And then Robert Pattinson also received advice on how to deal with, like, the Batman stuff from Nolan when he was filming Tenet, because Nolan made all the previous Batman movies. Well, not all the previous, but the previous trilogy.
Yeah, the
Batman
previous
movies.
successful trilogy.
Yes.
And I really like that Bale basically just told him to do what he wanted, to not listen to the criticism.
Yeah, and to make it his own, because that's really what you should do with something like that.
I mean, that's what
when you've had how many incarnations of it at this point?
That's what he had to do, too, because I remember people, you know, commenting on him being cast as Batman as well. It's like every time you cast a character like this, even we did, you know, I
was kind of like, what? But I didn't hate it the way that some people did.
We had our skepticism, we had our disbelief, and yes, there's some people that are way more strongly opposed to the idea, even when they haven't seen anything. Mm-hmm. I remember people just ragging on Anne Hathaway's Catwoman costume.
Okay, to be fair, had only ever seen Anne Hathaway in, like, I'd only known her from, like, The Princess Diaries or whatever, right? When she was Catwoman. I didn't trust her to be Catwoman. When they cast her, I was like, you cast who?
I was
She can't be Catwoman. And then I watched it, and I'm like, Catwoman's the one thing I like about this movie.
I actually remember seeing that and being like, you know what? I've seen her in other stuff where she actually had more. Because, yeah, she did Rachel Getting Married, where she had to do a really intense performance of a recovering drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because I had watched her in other things that I knew that, you know what, she might actually be able to do it.
Yeah, back in the day, I was an edgelord, okay? I didn't trust it. And then I actually finally watched that movie, and she's, like, one of the highlights of that film.
Yeah, she was a really good Selena.
It's a rough one, Nolan, I'm sorry, but...
It's very bloated, Nolan. And I still love the Nolanverse Batman series. But this movie and this acting...
Oh, God, this movie did not feel 3 hours long.
It didn't, actually.
Other than to, like, my ADHD brain when I get kind of... shaky, or like my leg starts doing the shaky thing, and you had like you even reached over at me at one point. It was like trying to get my leg to stop moving
because you were shaking my leg.
I know, it wasn't my fault though. It was just my brain.
I know,
my brain did it.
I mean, sometimes my leg will do it too, especially during really long movies. But when you're literally starting to shake me with it,
I know.
That's when I'm like, okay, you need to stop that.
And then I probably did it more anyway.
You did.
I'm sorry.
But it's fine.
But other than that, like, I did not recognize the 3 hours. My body might have, but I did not. So, Zoe Kravitz came to Selena because she'd already voiced Catwoman on the Lego Batman movie. And she was also chosen over Ana de Armas? I don't know how to say her name.
Ana de Armas. Yeah, she was in Knives Out.
Yeah, I know who she is. I just couldn't remember how to say her name. Ella Balinska, Isa Gonzalez, Zazie Beetz. I can say names. And Alicia Vikander.
Damn, Alicia Vikander would have been so good.
But so was Zoe. Zoe was amazing.
Zoe was amazing in this, but damn, I also really love Alicia Vikander too.
So, like Pattinson, she was really, really reluctant to do another big franchisey thing because of X-Men First Class.
Yeah.
And I'd honestly forgotten that she was Angel in that movie.
Yeah,
I really had.
Yeah, she was
even though it's a very similar character.
Yeah, she was in Fury Road too.
Oh my god, she was.
Yeah.
What the hell? I keep forgetting that she's in these things that I know that she's in that I've seen. What the hell?
She has a very extensive filmography.
She a chameleon over here.
She's been in the Fantastic Beasts movies. She's been in Big Little Lies. She's been very busy.
Yes. But, so she was reluctant, but she was also very connected to Selena. Kind of like Robert Pattinson was just like, I love Batman. Let me be Batman. She was connected to Selena emotionally and aesthetically.
I mean, girl,
that's what she said.
Girl, aren't we all?
I mean, same. And she studied a lot of like cat and lion footage for movement. Good. Hello, all you cool cats and kittens.
Good.
And then she also took inspo from Michelle Pfeiffer, which you can see because of the way that she actually owns cats, which we haven't seen in a Catwoman recently.
The way she owns cats, the way she does her nails.
It was so cute with the cats, and and the also, kitty on her motorcycle. I died.
Yeah, the little cat carriers.
Oh, I loved it so much.
Also, just the way she talked, the way she wore leather and all that shit. But also, I wanted to notice that you remember how Catwoman's like theme with the violins in Batman Returns. They were doing that like all in the movie too.
Nice. You keep skipping to soundtrack.
I don't care.
Stop it.
I don't care.
Stop it. So
don't censor me.
Censors.
Don't box me in
boxes.
No. Breaks your box. Throws it at you.
Please don't. So getting to the Riddler, Jonah Hill was originally in talks for either Riddler or Penguin, and I can't imagine either.
I mean, after watching Wolf of Wall Street, I could actually imagine him as Penguin, but not the Riddler.
No, not the way that they did the Riddler anyway.
No.
So according to Variety in 2019, Their story was that Hill wanted over three times what Robert Pattinson's reported salary was for the film. Robert Pattinson got paid $3 million
for this
to be Batman.
Holy shit!
Jonah Hill reportedly it's from this Variety report. I didn't make these numbers up. Jonah apparently wanted like $10 million.
Oh my god, bro, no. You're not making more than Batman.
No. Also, I can't believe Robert Pattinson only made $3 million for this movie when it's gonna make like a bajillion billion dollars.
I can't believe he only took it for $3 million either. He must really love Batman.
I mean, good for you, Robert, but please make sure you get your money.
Yeah.
Next movie, like, bro.
Bro, come on.
Bro. But according to The Hollywood Reporter, also in 2019, Hill and WB couldn't reach an agreement on which character he should actually play, so they just kind of, like, stalled out, and the talks just kind of fell apart. So we don't know which story is actually correct.
I bet he's really kicking himself now.
Probably. Probably. But then I'm not sure that the movie would have been as good in the first place.
No.
So that didn't happen, obviously, and so once he exited talks for either character, Paul Dano entered discussions as the Riddler, and that's who we ended up having. And he did a bunch of research on serial killers, which I commented on. I'm like, yeah, he feels like a serial killer.
Good.
But he had to do all of his reading in public coffee shops, reportedly, because the material was so disturbing that he didn't want to read it alone.
I mean, I can't really blame him. There's some true crime episodes that I
really
listen
awful.
to,
yeah,
that they are so rough that I'll end up having to pause and just like take deep breaths because it also
depends on who is presenting it and how the information is presented. To be fair,
yes.
But yeah, so apparently he had to do a lot of his reading in public coffee shops to like downplay how disturbing the material actually was.
And not feel scared by the shit he was reading, probably.
Yes, and he also used his previous portrayal of Brian Wilson in 2014's Love and Mercy, which we just learned about was a thing.
Yeah, I
don't know how I didn't hear about this because I love music biopics, unless it's Bohemian Rhapsody, and we don't talk about that.
And I love the Beach Boys, and I have no idea. I had no idea this movie even existed.
Yeah, but he played young Brian Wilson in this movie, and he used this as a basis for his performance. And we watched the beginning of this trailer, and I'm like, okay, I'm not really seeing how this connects, but okay. And then you get to that one point, like halfway into the trailer, and I'm like, oh,
this took a turn.
That took a turn, and I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Understand now. Got it.
But also, I think, and I had to explain this to you because you haven't seen Prisoners yet.
Mm-mm. Also a Denis movie.
Yes, also a Denis movie. A very good Denis movie.
Denis.
Probably one of his best ones alongside Dune, I was
like, don't you put that above Dune, I will fight you.
When you watch it, you'll see what I mean. But it basically, Paul Dano's character in that, I felt his Riddler in this movie was a more unhinged version of his character in Prisoners.
Well, in that shot that scene that you showed me also, I was like, okay, I'm getting Zodiac vibes out of Gyllenhaal here too. Great. Mm-hmm. Okay, so just coming full circle.
Do you know what his name is?
Robert?
No.
Graysmith?
Detective Loki.
What?
Yes.
Denis, why do you do this to me?
Loki, Detective Loki.
Denis. Honey, what are you doing? I love you. So, it was also reportedly Dano's idea to use the plastic wrap because he felt that the Riddler would be careful not to leave DNA at crime scenes.
That's true.
But the plastic wrap actually, like, fucked him up on set because it would, like, constrict his head and he would sweat too much in it and, like, his head would just be throbbing with heat because it was just trapping all of that stuff in there. It's kind of like people who bind poorly in the costume world, and I know this a little too well because I've definitely done it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the people who do that, and oof. Yeah, so I can imagine that. But yeah, he really screwed himself up with the actual plastic wrap. And I get, like, the idea of it, but,
It's why wearing actual, tight latex costumes on your skin is a really bad idea.
I mean, like, I get what the concept of it was, and I agree with the thought process.
Because you're basically suffocating your skin.
Yeah, that's kind of like the plot of Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Or at least part of the plot of Goldfinger, because I always will remember that as learning that you have to leave some part of your skin unpainted or you will die.
Yes.
So, Farrell based Oswald on Fredo Corleone from The Godfather.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense.
Fredo! And worked with a specific dialect coach, Jessica Drake. So, a different dialect coach than the overall production dialect coach.
Well, she did...
To develop his voice for that, and she did a very good job.
She did an amazing job, because let me tell you something right here.
I talked about this on the way home.
I have a tangent when it comes to Colin Farrell. I don't have anything against him. I think he's a very good actor in the right roles. But there's this movie called Alexander that I fucking hate.
I mean, most people do not like that movie,
I think that movie was woefully miscast by a majority of the people in it. Not just Farrell, but a lot of the people in it. And I have a real bone to pick with Oliver Stone about pussying out and not making Alexander more gay, number one.
You have a bone to pick with Oliver Stone, period.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
Yeah. Because he has no problem bending the truth and all this other shit in his other movies. Artistic license, my ass. You know, he has no problem doing that. But when it comes to this, oh no, gotta keep him super duper straight. But also...
Except that he's not. That's, like, actually historically inaccurate.
But also, let's put elephants in the fucking jungle.
Oh my
There's
God.
nothing wrong with that. Except historically that didn't happen, and also they would sink in that jungle because of all the mud and the moisture.
Yep. Where are the elephants? It's Game of Thrones all over again.
And then you have your Greek prince, your Alexander the Great, with his fucking Irish accent coming in and out to where he just gives up at one point and lets it fly. And I'm just, out of all the things in this movie, between his accent and fucking Angelina Jolie over here sounding like Madame Dracula, I don't even know what is going on, and I hate every minute of it.
To be fair, Angelina Jolie was actually the only thing I liked about that movie.
Yeah, because she was hot. That's about it.
It's true. It's true, but she was also the only character I liked in it.
My point being is that
he's not very good at selling other accents, is what you're getting at.
No, he's not. He's not good at selling them at all. Even with his American accent, which he has technically gotten better with. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
He has actually... He's had the same problem with his Irish accent slipping out.
Sorry for the police sirens if you can hear them back there.
In the distance. Even Michael Fassbender let his slip out during X-Men First Class when he starts giving that speech on the beach, and all of a sudden Magneto sounds Irish. Like, what the fuck, Eric? What?
Yeah, he starts sounding like Macbeth.
Yes.
Good for him.
But the thing is, what I'm building up to, after all of my ranting, is that
oh my God, those sirens!
They're coming for me.
The GCPD is coming for you.
They're coming for me because I dunked so hard on Oliver Stone. Is that Colin Farrell did an amazing job with his accent in this. Not once did I hear it slip. Not once did I hear any of that. No, it was great. He actually sounded...
No, that one part when he's, like, being interrogated...
It was so
by
good.
Gordon and Batman.
Yeah, why are you showing me that for?
Why are you showing me that for? Yeah, like, he sounded so Italian mobster guy, and I loved it so much.
He was leaning so hard into Goodfellas territory, and it was so good. Like... He disappeared into the prosthetics. He disappeared into the role. And his accent did not slip, and I'm so proud of him for that. Because I had such a massive bug up my ass about it, Alexander.
Oh, I mean, to be fair, Alexander was not good in
terrible movie.
In any way. But speaking of that, so he channeled The Godfather, but...
No, he channeled Fredo Corleone.
But from The Godfather as a movie, he channeled
have you
the
seen
movie
The Godfather?
No, we have talked about this.
Okay, well, then you don't understand about Fredo.
No, what I'm saying is he channeled the movie The Godfather, not the character The Godfather. But stop getting pedantic at me. Calm down.
I'm gonna get spicy with you about The Godfather.
You're getting spicy at me.
I am.
Oh, what you show me this for?
What you show me this for?
The Penguin series, the spin-off that they want to do, they want it to be a standalone story and depict Penguin's rise to power, which the other producer of the film, not Reeves, the other guy, compared to Scarface.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So again, we keep bringing up all these like very iconic.
He has
movies.
He has a very Tony Montana swagger and attitude about him.
And all I can think of, because I haven't seen that one yet either, all I can think of is that like Lonely Island song with Michael Bolton, where God. he's bringing up Scarface because he like made this chorus all about Jack Sparrow, and everybody's like, what the hell? And then he keeps, like, jumping from movie to movie and finally lands on Scarface. And they're like, you know what? Good enough.
I honestly can't wait for you to actually watch these movies.
I'm so excited. I keep meaning to get around to it, and I just haven't. Those sirens are just... They're going just off. Something must have happened on the freeway out there.
I have watched Scarface and the Godfather trilogy multiple times. I've watched Godfather Part 1 and 2 way more than Part 3. Part 3 is kind of a
You said
downer,
that nobody liked Part 3.
And there's a good reason for it. It's kind of a downer, but aside from that, it's incredibly long. It feels every minute of its runtime. It's not as good as the first two parts. But yeah, even my mom actually liked watching Scarface with Al Pacino. And I'm like, you know what? This is where I get it from. I get it from you.
Yes. So, getting back to Colin Farrell, because we went on quite the tangent.
Yes.
He used prosthetics and a suit to avoid having to gain the actual weight, because he ended up with a bunch of health issues having to do that for a TV show.
Yeah, see,
recently, and that like really screwed him up.
Sometimes method acting is not the way you need to go.
Exactly. So like he was in The North Water, which was like this 2021 TV show that he had to gain all this weight for, and apparently like he had like all these health issues doing so.
I mean, that's why so many people were concerned about Christian Bale fluctuating his weight so drastically between roles. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of
like
worrying.
The people that like emaciate themselves for a role when they're like trying to look like that too.
Because you've seen pictures of him from The Machinist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it is very concerning.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
honestly,
that's why they developed like prosthetics for him, basically, because it was just much easier to do that, kind of like Dune. I wouldn't want Stellan Skarsgård to hurt himself trying to look like the Baron Harkonnen.
I feel like if an actor can just get away with doing that, then they should. Not everything needs to be so kind of intense. If
it's gonna cause you like health issues, find a different way to do it. I'm fine with that.
Please.
Great. So WB also disallowed smoking tobacco for the character, even though like it's very iconic for the Penguin to do so.
He's got the Cruella de Vil cigarette holder.
Yeah, but so Farrell fought to have like cigar replacements for the cigarettes, and the studio wouldn't even let him do that. They were just like, no smoking, not doing it.
But all this other violence and torture, totally okay.
Again, that's how they kept their PG-13 rating.
This is such full of shit. Mm-hmm. They even have drug use in there.
Uh-huh.
But you're gonna tell...
Yeah, uh-huh. It's because they didn't, like, hyper-focus on the people taking the drug.
No, but that's literally
They just imply it a lot. I know.
No, they literally showed them taking a drug in that scene.
That's probably how they got away with that, is because they didn't do the smoking. You can have this one scene with this one thing in it. You know how the MPAA works.
I know, that's why I keep pointing out how all this other shit
is nonsense.
Fine.
It's nonsense, and we've all known this for a very long time.
God forbid we show a dick on screen.
Oh. Oh, no. But through the prosthetics and stuff, Wright and Henry Jones did not recognize him the first time on set with all the makeup on.
I mean, I didn't
either. Like, that trailer came out, they're like, yeah, that's Colin Farrell. I'm like, no, it's not.
My mom, who is a huge fan of Colin Farrell, because she thinks he's so cute, I told her, that's Colin Farrell in the trailer. She's like, no, it isn't. She was just in fervent denial that that's not him.
Well, I mean... Even when you're, like, looking at Stellan Skarsgard and all of his, like, makeup and prosthetics and everything that he did for Dune, he still looks like Stellan Skarsgård.
Yeah, just hugely bald and fat.
Just big. Right? Colin Farrell does not look like Colin Farrell.
He does not look
even a little bit.
He doesn't look a thing like himself.
You can kind of see it in the eyes a little bit if you know what you're looking for. But, like, the rest... It was kind of like... It wasn't quite as much, but it was kind of like when they released those, like... photos of Lily James as Pam Anderson, because I could not see Lily James in them. I could only see Pam Anderson.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
This, again, is why people should wait to see actual footage of the movie before making harsh judgments about it.
Because there were people that were making judgments on this movie based on the trailer alone and being like, well, this movie's going to be like this, and... I don't want to go see it because of that, and it's you don't even know.
This is why I always, if I see something that I'm not really on board with, I'm like, I'm just going to wait and see I need to see a trailer, and that's it. That's where I leave it.
Or, because I need to see this on streaming, maybe. I'm not going to go pay to see that.
Because the thing is that it's like with set photos and all this other shit, it doesn't always look that way when it's in movement and when it's on film. It looks different because you have the photography, the cinematography, you have coloring, you have editing, you have all this other shit involved other than, them on a back lot walking to their set.
Henry Cavill in The Witcher.
Yeah, like that.
Yes.
It all looks very different when you actually have a completed product right there.
Yes.
Which cannot be said the same for, that Mummy trailer that came out that was only sound effects. That was terrible no matter which way you slice it. Which sometimes you get a few duds.
Yeah, but like he was absolutely unrecognizable, so I'm not that surprised. Okay, so now we're finally to the part that you've wanted to get to through the whole recording.
But I've already said everything I needed to.
I'm so mad at you. So, the music for The Batman was composed by Michael Giacchino, who we've previously covered in our Captain Marvel episode, as the composer of the iconic Marvel fanfare opening to every MCU movie slash TV show, slash the dude who actually stuck up for the other composer that actually did the music for Captain Marvel.
Yes.
After that very real... weird conspiracy about how she didn't do it that was nonsense.
Yeah.
So, Reeves previously also did work with Giacchino on Cloverfield in the end credits. Only the end credits, not the whole movie. Let Me In. Dawn of Planet of the Apes. War for Planet of the Apes. And he's also done previous compositions for films such as Speed Racer, Star Trek, the trilogy, like the new ones.
The new Trek.
Jupiter Ascending, Up, for which he won an Oscar and a BAFTA.
Aww.
Super 8, Tomorrowland, Doctor Strange,
yep.
the Jurassic World trilogy, Rogue One, Inside Out, Zootopia, Coco, the Spider-Man MCU trilogy, Jojo Rabbit, Lightyear, and Thor Love and Thunder, which we haven't heard yet, but I'm real psyched for it.
Now, see, when it comes to the Doctor Strange soundtrack, I will say that there were times when that shit actually sounded way too close to his Star Trek soundtrack.
I mean, fair. But this is another guy who, one, works an absolute ton
Yes.
with Abrams.
He does.
Works an absolute ton with Disney.
He works a lot in general.
Oh,
really.
Up also won him an Oscar and a BAFTA, FYI. So
Yeah.
there were two of them.
You did say that.
Did I?
Yeah.
There was another one he won stuff for, and maybe I just didn't.
Was it Coco?
It might have been. I think it was one of those. Sorry, I didn't note it. There was another one that I meant to note. Anyway.
I did really like his Rogue One soundtrack, though. And, yeah.
No, I bet it was Inside Out.
It might have been.
Anyway, it was probably some Disney movie, I think is what it was.
That's mostly what they get nominated for.
Yeah, so, and, like, he's, again, one of the lead composers for the MCU, like,
Yes.
house-style stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason, like, I can see the fact that he's doing the new Taika Thor because he'd done Jojo Rabbit.
Mm-hmm. And he worked with Taika on that.
So he came back for that. He also apparently did, like, several Wachowski films. I always want to confuse it with Wazikowski, who is different.
She's an actress.
Than the Wachowski sisters.
Yeah,
Wazikowski is Mia.
Mia.
Who is the actress.
Yes.
Wachowski are the sisters who direct things.
Yeah, those are their films. Jupiter Ascending
Speed Racer and Jupiter Ascending. I was, like, half expecting to see The Matrix in there, too. No. But yeah, like, you have so many Abrams things in here. I was actually kind of surprised that he'd done, like, the final Star Trek movie that Abrams didn't do.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, did. He's done a ton of things.
He's starting to get some Hans Zimmer stride in here. Working on all these movies. Being in high demand.
But also, so you brought up that it had, like, a lot of Elfman notes in it,
yes,
which I noticed the first time.
Yeah,
you were the one who brought up the animated series, because I haven't seen it. You would have
yes.
recognized that more than I would have first time, but I recognized the Elfman in it instantly.
Yeah, because I showed you those clips of, like, the opening theme, and it's like that throughout the whole animated series. Like, they had a full fucking orchestra for a lot of that show. And then you had the Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where they had not just the orchestra, but they had a choral music.
Which we also see in this.
Yes.
But this one also has, like, a lot of other different inspirations on top of that, now that we've heard everything. It's got some Exorcist vibes in it, with all the tubular bells things.
Oh,
it sounds like a horror movie at times, and it's amazing.
Well, I think that's part of just what worked in his favor, because sometimes this feels like a horror movie.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But also, like, that Batman theme is just, like... It's perfection.
But yeah, I remember the violins when they were searching the Riddler's apartment. It sounded exactly like the kind of music you hear when Selina basically has had her mental breakdown in her apartment.
No, geez.
And I remember that because I really loved Batman Returns. And I've watched that movie several times, and I remembered those musical cues. And it was so, like, oh, I see what you're doing here. Yeah,
but it also has the religious arias, which is actually, like, a plot point.
Yes, it is.
And then you have, like, the weird club beats that I'm like, okay, but it, like, actually, like, fits the rest of the rest of the soundtrack, because a lot of the soundtrack, like, even, like, the character themes will have, like, drops in them. Drop the beat. And, like, especially the Batman one, where it'll be, like, pretty soft, and then suddenly the song is different, and it'll be like that for a little bit, and then suddenly the song is different again.
And you also had, like, when he was fading in and out of consciousness, and just the
cues were really well timed and stuff, too. I really liked it.
The silences when the sound came whooshing back in. Like, it's all... I honestly feel like this is probably... probably about it. It's easily one of his best soundtracks he's done. Like, he put a lot of work into this.
Well, he was so excited to do it that he did it, like, super quick once he got hired to do it. I mean, and that's why they were actually able to use parts of the soundtrack for, like, marketing, because the music was actually done.
I mean,
which is rare.
Great.
But that's why they were able to release, like, certain tracks as, like, singles.
I mean,
before the movie even came out.
Well, see, it's so rare, because normally they will actually play the music over the actual footage of the film in post-production. So yeah, him getting that done and having it all ready to go.
So it allowed them to, like, use a lot of that in the actual trailers when a lot of the trailers will not have that stuff done yet. That's why, like, a lot of the early Dune trailers, we got, like, that Pink Floyd cover song rather than, like, an actual Hans Zimmer song.
And they did that all over Zoom.
And that was a gorgeous cover. Yeah. I love it. But yeah, we didn't actually have, like, the other Hans Zimmer stuff because he wasn't done with it yet. No. He was still trying to compose it amid COVID. So, yeah, that
was such a good cover.
Yes. But this soundtrack, I died. Like, I was playing the Batman theme for you, and I'm like, I'm dying. I love this.
Yeah, and that's when I had to point out to you, it's literally sounds like the theme for the animated series.
Yes.
And I love it. It does, but also it sounds more intense at the same time.
But yeah, it also definitely has, like, that tubular bells stuff intermittent within stuff, and I'm like, I am in love. But also, he's kind of possessed. With vengeance!
With vengeance. In fact, that's how some people refer to him. They don't really refer to him as Batman. They refer to him as Vengeance or Freak.
See, now I just want Batman 2 to be that scene from The Hunchback with Justice.
Oh my god.
And them arguing back and forth that turned into the meme.
Oh my god.
Yes. I don't remember what the other one was, because I just remember her screaming justice, and I'm like, I want Batman to do this now the next time somebody calls him something different.
Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Was when Quasimodo rescued Esmeralda from the stake and swung back up to the cathedral, because that's how, ropes work, and held her aloft, screaming, Sanctuary.
Oh, silence. Silence and justice. This is what I want that whole movie to be. Just silence, justice, silence, justice.
Oh my god.
That's all I want. That's all I want. That's all I want out of Batman 2.
Well, it won't, because Disney doesn't own DC yet.
You know what? They could still reference it and no one would know. Also, does Disney care about the Hunchback? Because I argue that Disney really doesn't care about the Hunchback.
We would know. No, they did used to care, because it's pretty much one of their darkest fucking movies ever.
Yeah, except that they stopped caring about it in a similar way to stopped caring about the Black Cauldron.
Which, excuse you, Disney, if you really want a live-action fantasy franchise, there it is right there. Remake the Black Cauldron in live action.
As a TV series, it would be amazing.
As a TV series. And yeah, it would be amazing. You would have a gold mine. Mm-hmm. Like, come on, the Horned fucking King there.
Yeah, but not to get on a tangent, but yes.
Batman.
So, if you were going to rate this on Letterboxd, what rating are you giving this movie?
5 stars.
So, knowing that, how would you rate it against the other Batman movies?
Well, Schumacher's at the bottom.
I know.
So is Snyder.
They're
both at the bottom.
I don't count those because they're not solo Batman movies.
Well, I count them anyway because I'm...
Well, then they're automatically at the bottom because they're not solo Batman movies. Well,
I count them anyway because I'm a bitch. Okay? Okay. So there.
All right. Fine. Okay, so... Then you have Burton and Nolan and this one.
I mean, I still do love the 2 Burton movies because those are the ones I grew up with as a kid. Mm-hmm. Jack Nicholson scaring the shit out of me. Mm-hmm. Those are in a very fond 3rd place. Mm-hmm. I would rank The Dark Knight Rises and Batman Begins in 2nd place. Mm-hmm. And I would rank The Batman and The Dark Knight as 1.
Okay.
And my 1st place.
Okay, that makes sense. I thought you were going to be a lot more biased towards Nolan, actually.
Well, Here's the thing. The Dark Knight is still a very solid movie.
Oh, yeah, it is. Absolutely.
I think it's the best one in the trilogy.
This isn't me being like, well, you only get to have one Batman now, so you gotta pick which one.
As if
I just thought you'd be a little more biased towards Nolan than that.
Oh, that's the thing.
Because I know you love him.
I do. I love the Batman Nolan trilogy. And I still do love it. Mm-hmm. Except the first one it's a very solid movie too, but it's very much an origin film. It sometimes kind of, lags for that. Ugh. The Dark Knight Rises, as much as I liked a lot of parts in that movie.
The movie overall is...
It's incredibly bloated.
Yes.
It has a lot of bad pacing problems.
Bruce! I'm Tom Hardy! Hold the microphone closer to my face! I didn't kill the guy from Game of Thrones? Okay.
I actually really loved a lot of the cast in that because it was mostly the Inception cast. And I was here for
it's
it.
Fair.
But again, it suffers a lot from being overly bloated and pacing issues. But overall, I still love Christian Bale as Batman. Mm-hmm. I really do. He will always be my favorite Batman. But the thing is that Robert Pattinson's Batman is very true to the core of what Batman is. Mm-hmm. His performance was way more than I expected it to be. So I feel like, yeah, he's pretty much tied with Bale in that regard. And I feel like it was an incredibly good movie all on its own merit, but it was an amazing Batman movie.
Yes.
And just like how I feel The Dark Knight was an amazing Batman movie.
Yes.
So as much as I still love the Nolan Batman films, I do really love this one, too.
Surprise!
I am surprised by it.
So, my ratings would be a little bit different.
Of course it would.
It would be a little bit different.
Of course.
This one's still 5.
Schumacher.
5 out of 5. It's a perfect movie. 10 out of 10.
It is.
It's a perfect film. I feel as strongly about this as I did Dune. I went nuts over Dune.
It's an amazing Batman movie.
It's so good. It's perfect. It's everything I ever wanted out of Batman.
It is.
It's perfect. That said, I like a lot of the corny, terrible Batman movies.
I know you do.
But also, like, my rankings kind of, again, move stuff between trilogies and stuff. So, my bottom would be The Dark Knight Rises. And that's only because there are so many story elements in that are just... What is this movie? What is this movie? I want to like this movie, but it's really hard. But at the same time, I feel the same way about Batman and Robin. Because I love Uma Thurman. I love Uma Thurman in that movie, okay?
One thing in that movie.
I kind of like one thing in The Dark Knight Rises, too, and it's Catwoman. That said... There's a fuzzy floating around in the room. I was like, what is that?
Because you're kicking around over there.
I got very distracted. So it would be those two at the bottom. And then I have this really weird fondness for Batman Forever because I kind of grew up with it as like this movie. I really love it. I know it's terrible, but I'm gonna be
that snob, that Batman snob, and be like, ugh.
I know, but I really
judges
really
you.
So, and I really love Batman Returns, but I also feel like that movie's too long.
No,
it's really long.
Well,
it's really long.
You.
It's really long.
No, it isn't.
So, the middle gets kind of all muddled because I like certain things about other things and it gets messy. So the ranking of those ones doesn't really matter that much. They're all in the middle. Place changes. But then at the top, I would put this one above The Dark Knight. And I love The Dark Knight. But this is like ultimate perfect Batman movie. Perfect.
So see, I was actually still biased toward Nolan.
A little bit. But I'm also biased as hell towards this movie. So, I mean, fair. Right? fair.
It's because you keep equating him with Edward Cullen, and you're still a fan of Twilight.
Don't drag me like this. It's not nice. I don't approve. I don't approve. It's not nice. Anyway, perfect. 5 out of 5. We love it. It's an amazing movie.
It's an amazing movie. Everyone should go see it.
It's genius. It is not just hype. It is literally perfect.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
So, that said, thanks for listening to this episode of Fansplained. If you enjoy what we do, considering donating on Coffee. It just makes me laugh. Everything we make goes right back into the production quality of the show, including us laughing at everything.
You started it. What the hell?
We appreciate all of our subscribers and everything you do, and we're thankful for anything from Hulk smashing that like button to your questions and comments on each episode, and especially sharing the show with your friends. Though I'm not sure why you would, because this gets messy. Thank you for doing it anyway. Fansplained is typically a weekly media criticism and deep dive podcast, and we are currently still working our way through the chronological order of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're still addressing our regularly scheduled episode later this weekend, with our post-crossover film pause into the MCU multiverse, so 2000s X-Men.
Yeah.
X-Men. Mm-hmm. As well as our screening of the recent release Cyrano, which we're going to go see later today since it's 2 a.m.
Peter Dinklage. That's really the only reason we're going to see it.
It is Sansa Tyrion in a movie, and I'm here for it.
It is. It's Sansa Tyrion fanfiction.
But also, I love the costumes. I think it looks gorgeous. I'm really excited for it.
Another Joe Wright film.
Yes. With the same costume designer.
Yes.
What's up? Mm-hmm. So, you can find our updates here on YouTube, as well as on Twitter and Coffee at Fansplained. And if you want more of our conversations on the MCU and other fandoms, such as Batman, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell for new episode notifications. So, until next time, Salt Shakers, this has been Orion.
And am, I guess.
With the Fansplained podcast, and we'll see you next episode.